Good afternoon, everybody, and it's great to see so many have joined today's session, especially on a Friday afternoon. So thanks very much for coming. Simon here from careermap.co.uk, and welcome to our last ever live webinar for this year's National Apprenticeship Week. Today we're joined by the team from the Bank of England. The guys will be talking to you today about the exciting apprenticeship opportunities. Before we begin, if you look to the right of the presentation screen, you'll see a chat facility. We are live, so ask any questions at any time. Feel free to make comments and ask questions about the presentation, and there'll be time at the end for a full Q&A session. So guys, many thanks for joining us today. Before you begin the presentation, could you introduce yourselves and give us a bit of an overview of your roles within the Bank of England?
Hi everyone, thank you all for joining us today. As mentioned by Simon, we appreciate your time on a Friday afternoon, and I hope you find this session useful. I'm Siana Sivarajan, and I'm the apprenticeship lead at the Bank of England, and I manage all the apprenticeships for existing staff. I'm joined today by my colleagues Amy and Finn, who I'll leave to introduce themselves.
Thanks, Siana. Hi, everyone. Yeah, just echoing what Siana said, thank you all for joining. Hopefully you find this presentation useful. So my name is Amy Lawford. I'm also one of the Future Talent Leads at the Bank of England, and I focus on our external apprenticeship recruitment and development.
Hi everyone, thank you so much for joining. So my name's Finn. I am an IT apprentice at the bank. I joined in September, so my first year, and yeah, I'm going to be answering some questions and giving you some info on what it's like to be an apprentice.
Lovely, so we can get started then onto our first slide. Just to give you all a quick glimpse into what we will be covering today, I'll be starting by giving you all a very brief insight into the role of the bank, aided by a short video. My colleague Amy will then explain the different pathways available into the bank, along with the application process and some useful hints and tips that will help you along the way. This will then be followed by a short Q&A between Amy and our apprentice Finn, who will be sharing his experience on the degree apprenticeship so far, and of course his experience on joining the bank virtually. Then finally, I will share how you can get to know more about the work of the bank and how to get involved yourselves. Before we move on with the presentation, I just wanted to give you all the heads up that we do want to get you involved. So there will be 2 polls in this session. So please let us know your thoughts on the questions that we ask. So if we begin, what does the Bank of England do? As I mentioned, we do have a video to show you. So if we could play that video, please.
Hi, my name's Tiago, and I work at the Bank of England. The Bank of England is the central bank of the United Kingdom. We're different to a bank you would come across in the high street. That means we don't hold accounts or make loans to the public. We issue banknotes that you spend in shops. There are over 3 billion of these notes in circulation, worth over £60 billion. We set the official interest rates for the United Kingdom. This is called bank rate. It directly influences the cost of savings, loans, and mortgage rates. The Bank of England also keeps a close watch on the financial system, so you can have confidence that your money is safe in good times and in bad.
Thank you for playing that video for us. So as that video explained very simply who we are and what we do in a nutshell, but if we could just recap a few of the main points that you can see on the slide there. The Bank of England is unlike any bank that you see on the high street or that you use for online banking. Instead, the Bank of England is the central bank of the United Kingdom. So we make sure that you can pay for things as we print the banknotes and make sure that they are strong, attractive, and hard to forge. And as the technology we use continues to advance, when you pay for things electronically, we also work behind the scenes to make sure that you can make these payments every second of every day. We also set the interest rate. So the key interest rate in the economy, being the bank rate, is what then filters down into the interest rates offered when you put money into a savings account or take out a loan. And finally, we also monitor the high street banks. So we make sure that all the high street banks are safe and sound, and also look after the entire financial system to ensure that any risks are reduced and keep it safe, so money flows down to where it is needed the most. So that was a very quick run through of who we are and what we do. And of course, there are many more functions and roles that the bank does. But we'd like to hand it over to you now, actually, onto our first poll. The question being, how many people do you think work at the bank? So you should see this poll come up on your screen or to the side of your screen, I believe. You've got 4 options there, one being over 1,000, or 2,000, 3,000, or 4,000. So give it a couple more seconds. Okay, so looking at what we have so far, I think over 3,000 is the most popular answer. The correct answer is actually over 4,000. So well done to those who chose the last option, over 4,000. As of 31st of March 2020, we had 4,406 staff working at the bank. So now you know we have over 4,000 employees at the bank. So that's all from me. I'm now going to hand over to Amy for the next few slides.
Thanks, Yana. So on the screen, you should hopefully be able to see a table listing all of the Future Talent programmes that we have on offer here at the bank. I'll focus mainly on our apprenticeship offering, obviously, because that is the purpose of this week. But I will also just briefly run through the other programmes that we have on offer, just in case you were interested in going to university as well. So starting with our apprenticeship offering, we have our level 4 apprenticeship programme first listed, and this is an 18-month programme giving you the opportunity to get into the working world while still studying for a level 4 qualification relevant to your role. The opportunities can vary year on year. It really just depends what hiring areas have capacity to take on apprentices and what the interest is. But just using this year as an example, we had an associate project manager, data analyst, and an information systems business analyst level 4 apprenticeship on offer. So whilst this is an 18-month programme, you do join the bank as a permanent member of staff. So providing good performance, you do remain at the bank as a permanent member of staff once you roll off programme. So it is a real sort of start to your career as opposed to just an 18 months and then you move on and find something else. So then just having a look at the next one, which is our degree apprenticeship development programme. So this is a 39-month programme and is a little bit more new to us. We've had a couple of cohorts over the last couple of years and these are continuing to grow. Obviously, it's an extremely exciting opportunity. Again, it's the chance to get into the working world, but then not have to forfeit having to get a degree. You actually get the best of both worlds and get to start work, and then the bank then fund your degree, which is relevant to your role. So again, similar to the level 4, the opportunities vary year on year. But if we look at what we've hired for over the last couple of years, we have a digital and technology solutions degree, a data science degree, and an economics degree apprenticeship on offer. So there's a real variety for everyone. I have just seen a question pop up, so I'll just address that now, saying where are the apprenticeships based? So we recruit all of our apprentices into our Threadneedle Street office typically. Obviously, given the latest year, we've all been working from home since March last year, I think it was, and everyone that's joined us since has joined virtually. And given our plans are not yet set in stone for how we return, we're classing everything as virtual at the moment. But if it was in a normal year, it would be in our Threadneedle Street office, which is in London. So then just briefly going over the other programs that we have on offer, like I say, just in case anyone is considering the university route as well. So we do have 3 different internship opportunities depending on which year you're in. So we have a first year, penultimate and a postgraduate internship available. These vary between 6 to 8 weeks long. So they just give you some sort of valuable paid work experience over the summer in between your university years. Then we also have an industrial placement programme for those that are studying a degree that has a year in industry. So obviously this gives you quite a lot more experience. It would really help if you were looking to potentially get a graduate role at the bank. It's a great start to try and get the placement, as then you can really get some experience of what the bank's like. And then we also have our graduate development programme. So this is our 2-year grad programme for those graduates that have just graduated that year and are looking to start a full-time role from that September. We do have another range of opportunities, like I say, within the graduate programme. We have various different streams to choose from that are open to all degree disciplines. So there's no specified degree for our graduate programme. Just quickly checking some of the questions before I move on. Which universities do you have to attend? So our degree apprenticeships are specific to their own universities. So for digital tech, we work with Exeter. For data science, we work with Northeastern. And for economics, we work with Kent at the moment. These can sometimes change, but they're the supplies that we have in place at the moment. In terms of being local, we recruit people from all over. It purely just depends when we were in the office how easily you could access London. We do have people that sometimes it takes a 2-hour commute to get into London. So we do have people all over. And it might be that given the virtual world, it becomes a lot more of an option to people that live further away from London. But like I say, that's sort of TBC at the moment. I think it just depends how working returns by seeing what goes on this year. Can I apply for an apprenticeship while I'm still at college? Yep. So the way it would work is we open for our applications in October, November time to then start the following September. So if we follow a typical 6th form year, then we would expect year 13 students to be applying for our programmes as they go into year 13 to then be ready to start the following September. Is there anything to pay towards if that means a degree? No, the degree's fully funded. You don't have to pay anything and you get a salary of $23,000 as well. Entry requirements for the degree apprenticeships are dependent on each one and they are specified by the university as opposed to us. So I'd recommend having a look on our website because they're always detailed on there. Since the level 4 apprenticeships are school leavers, would that mean that the person would not have to attend a uni? So the level 4 apprenticeship again is targeted at sort of A-level college school leavers, and it's not a uni degree. It is a level 4 apprenticeship. So you still work with a supplier, but it's not got anything to do with university, and you don't have to have attended university to be eligible. Those that have a university degree, we tell to apply for our graduate programme, not our apprenticeships. Can you apply for a graduate role in the same year you are graduating? Yep. So if you know that you're going to be graduating in the summer of 2022, for example, then you'd be looking to start work in September 2022. So you'd apply for that year. I might just carry on picking up some of these at the end of the Q&A just so that I can make sure we get through all of the content. So please do make sure if your question hasn't been answered, then bring it back up at the end so that I can definitely address it. But I'm just conscious of how much we've got to get through. I think before I jump onto the next slide, we're going to do another poll. It was just going to be interesting to see what the audience were interested in terms of the programmes that I've just gone over. So if we could maybe launch that poll, which should be available. Yeah, so based on these programmes, which one are you interested in joining? Cool, so I can see a mixture of answers coming in. It looks like the biggest chunk is on apprenticeships, which is great to see. Looks like level 4 is winning over level 6 at the moment, but a strong amount of interest across both, which is really nice to see. So I think based on that, going on to the next slide, just out of interest for you all, I was going to just run through what our application process is like at the bank. This is specific to us, but I also think across all of the industries for future talent programs that are competitive, it's quite a standardized process. So it would be quite similar, I think, across the various industries if you were looking elsewhere. But just to give you an idea of what to expect from an application process using ours as a template. So our application process is the same for all of our future talent programs, whether you're applying for an apprenticeship, an internship, a graduate program, everyone follows the same process. So it starts with an online application form. So this is what we use instead of collecting CVs and cover letters. We don't ask people to submit these and we don't accept them either. The form is essentially a manual version of a CV. You just go through and populate all of your personal details, your education background, your work background. It's mainly just to capture your eligibility for the programme. So as long as you meet that, then you will be progressed to the next stage. There are a couple of questions within our online application form about your motivation for joining the bank and the motivation for the stream that you've applied for, what area is of interest to you. And these aren't assessed at the point of online application form, but if you were to get through to our final stage, we do look at these and your interviewers will likely ask you questions. So it's important to take the time to answer those questions properly and do yourself justice in those questions, as whilst they're not assessed at that point, they will come up later in the process. So then looking at online tests, we use a blended assessment at the bank, and all that means is it's just that the tests are all incorporated into one rather than sending you multiple tests to complete. So ours is made up of a mixture of situational judgment, personality tests, and then your typical numerical and verbal reasoning. These are then all benchmarked dependent on the standard that we've received that year. And if you're successful, you go through to our video interview. So our video interview has sometimes been seen as previously quite an awkward experience, I think. But I think because of the new virtual world that we've all been thrown into, they've actually become the norm. So the main difference with this stage is that it isn't live with other people. So the questions are pre-recorded and then you have some time to prepare an answer and then the platform starts recording you delivering your answer. And then this recording is then assessed by one of our assessors. So I think there's about 4 or 5 questions that you have to answer, and you always have some time to prepare. But once you've recorded your answer, that is what is saved and that is what is assessed. Similar to the online tests, the scores are then benchmarked, and if you pass, then you progress through to our assessment centre. And this is the final stage of our recruitment process, and for us it includes 2 group exercises and a competency-based interview. The group exercises are usually hypothetical situations that you work through as a group, so not really usually something you can prepare for. The purpose of group exercises is just to see how you work as a person, how you work in a team, and the values that you display. So like I say, usually a hypothetical scenario that you have to produce either a report or a presentation or something at the end. And then our interview is competency based, and by competency I mean those sort of questions where they say, please can you tell me about a time when you've demonstrated confidence in your own ideas, please can you tell me about a time when you've demonstrated leadership. So those evidence-based questions where you just have to think about different times where you've displayed different qualities and be able to give that back as an answer to demonstrate what you have to offer. And then within the interview, we do have a motivation section, as it's incredibly important to us that our candidates are motivated to join the bank and the bank specifically. And then some analytical sections in there too, just to see how you analyse problems and how you think. And then just moving on to some hints and tips following on from the assessment process. So I've split it out into the various steps of the application process just to break it down. So starting with the application form. So the biggest thing that goes without saying is please research the organisation, whether that be the bank or anywhere else that you're interested in. Do just research it to actually understand what they are and what they do. Firstly, for your benefit, just to make sure that it is somewhere you'd really like to work, but also it will likely come up in the application form, a general question about why are you interested in working here, what's your motivation, where in particular you're interested in working. So it's definitely worthwhile taking the time to research, have a look at what you can find, what areas there are, what we do, just so that you're prepared for those questions that come up, and also just to make sure that you know what you're applying for. Be honest about your experience, and this works two ways. So I mean, don't try to over glamorize something that may not be true. You always want to be able to give evidence that you can confidently talk about if it were to be brought up in an interview. We often do hear sometimes candidates, if they don't have much experience, feel that they need to maybe say they did a bit more than they necessarily did, just to fill some space, but it's really not what we're looking for. We completely understand that, especially at apprenticeship stage, you're not going to have tons of work experience, and we're not expecting that, and we're not looking for that. So do be honest about your experience. And then from the other side, don't feel like anything is irrelevant. Any experience you've had, whether it be a 1 week work experience, experience you've gained from some kind of extracurricular activity that you've done, everything is relevant. So please do just make sure, which comes on to my next point, that your application form captures all the information you want it to. We'd rather have more information about you than less. So please do make sure it's an accurate reflection of you as a person. Moving on to then online tests. So it's hard to give many hints and tips about online tests. It really does just come down to practice, and there are plenty of different online test sites. If you just type into Google online psychometric testing, online verbal testing, and just practice, because the main difficulty with online tests is the style of questioning and then the pace that you have to go. They will always be quite tight deadlines. So it's just getting used to working to those tight deadlines, being conscious of the time in the corner and not letting it put pressure on you. So the more you can practice those, the more comfortable you'll be in that scenario. And just allow yourself enough time, don't commit to them if you have to go out in an hour or something, just in case anything goes wrong or the test's a lot longer than you expected it to be. Just make sure that you can completely relax, know that you've not got any other commitments, and can focus on the tests. Then our video interview, a more thorough research of the organisation I would recommend, and thinking about the future more than the history. Now, for the bank, I think this is quite key, because the bank has an incredible history. Obviously, we have hundreds of years of history that is really interesting, but it's not what we're going to be assessing you on. We're not going to be looking for how much you know about what we did 100 years ago. As much as it might be interesting, it's not relevant for what we're looking for. So it can be very easy when you're reading on a website to look at all the interesting stuff we've done in the past. But actually, what's more interesting and valuable to us is to know that you know what we do now and what we might be looking to in the future. Given the bank's position in the UK, we are the central bank of the UK, so everything that happens in the economy has an impact on us, and we have had an impact on that. So it's a lot more about what we're looking at, what challenges we could face, where we might be, where we want to go in 5 years and stuff like that. So I'd focus your research more on the current and the future rather than the history. And then just think of some examples to use to evidence your behaviours. So treat it exactly like you would a normal face-to-face interview. There will be questions likely around how you behave in a team, whether you're a natural leader, some slightly more bank-specific questions as well. But if you just make sure you think about what experience you've had, whether that be sport or work or another extracurricular activity, anything is relevant in this situation, anything you can use to evidence a certain behaviour, just think of as many examples as you can so that you've got a real variety to use. And then in terms of the assessment centre, a few more tips for this one. It is one of the biggest ones to prepare for, of course, as it's the last stage. So firstly, look back at your application form. It's good just to give yourself a reminder of what you've included in it. Again, in terms of the questions that you've answered around why you've applied for this role, just have a look at what you've said. It doesn't matter if your opinion's changed. It might be that at the point you applied, you were interested in tech, but at the point of the assessment centre, you're now interested in markets. And that's absolutely fine, I think, as long as you feel confident to explain why. And it might just be because you've educated yourself more on the opportunities. But it's good just to remind yourself what you've put, because your interviewers will likely bring it up. Make sure you read all of the information provided in the invites and emails. It's quite easy, I think, when you're sent an invite to attend an assessment centre to just quickly look at the date, make sure you book on, and then make sure you get that sorted. And then it's quite easy to skip all of the other wording in the email. But it might be that some places provide you a brief ahead of the assessment centre in terms of how to prepare and what you're going to be doing. Have a look at what they're telling you in terms of dress code, in terms of timings, just so that you can really prepare yourself, so that you don't have any kind of niggling thoughts in your head that you don't know the answer to. Remind yourself of the key skills that are listed in the job description, as these will very likely be the basis of what they're assessing against. We're quite clear with what we look for, I think, in our job descriptions and what we'd expect from you. And we do have a sort of how to apply an advice page as well to tell you a little bit about the skills that we look for. So just have a look back at the original job description to remind you of what you're applying for and what we might be looking for. If you do have any old interview feedback, if you've been able to do any mock interviews or you've had any previous job interviews, it's really valuable to have a look back at your feedback, and don't shy away from the development points. So you can look at it both ways. So you should definitely look at your positives to just give you a confidence boost and remind you of what you're really good at in an interview. But then also make sure that you do look at the development points. You know, they're there so that every time you go for another interview, you can improve on your performance. So do have a look at both of them, firstly for the confidence boost, but then also just to make sure that whatever you weren't as strong on before, you can work on and improve on for the next interview. And then finally, just like I said for the video interview, think of a good range of examples to use to evidence your behaviours. Our interview, like I said, is competency based. There are a lot of questions around the behaviours that we're looking for in people and how to demonstrate them. So please do just make sure that you have a think about as many as you can, and don't ever think that anything is irrelevant. If you've got any example, please do just use it, as every example is relevant. So I think that's enough of me just talking at you now for about 15 minutes. So just moving on to our slide with Finn. So Finn, if you just want to introduce yourself, talk about where you are working and what you're studying, and then we'll move on to the Q&A, if that's okay.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you, Amy. So as mentioned, yeah, I'm Finn. I'm an IT apprentice. I joined the bank virtually in September. The entire process has been virtual, so I've never been to the building. I've never met anyone I work with, but it's been a really good experience so far. So I work within technology in the testing space, but I can tell you a bit more about that in a minute. And yeah, I'm with the University of Exeter, so I have one study day a week. And again, I've never met anyone who is with me, or never met any of my lecturers. But yeah, and it's a 4-year course.
Perfect. Thanks, Finn. So obviously you guys can see the questions on the screen, but we'll just go through them one by one. So firstly, Finn, what made you choose an apprenticeship over university?
So for me, I came straight out of college and did pretty well, but didn't really want to do sort of classroom-based learning anymore. I've always learned better doing the practical work, so applying my knowledge. And so in college, I did 2 BTECs, which actually really sort of outlined that to me, that I really prefer to apply my knowledge. And of course, an apprenticeship, when I looked into it and all the sort of benefits you get from it, it is an amazing sort of, deal. And yeah, it's just, I mean, so far it's been amazing. And you get so much out of it that it's so beneficial. And for me personally, it's really sort of built me as a person, and given me a lot of skills that I definitely don't think I would have got from university. So yeah.
Lovely, thank you. And then what attracted you to the Bank of England specifically?
So obviously the bank is such a prestigious place. It's sort of the heart of the UK economy, and it runs so many things that obviously Amy sort of mentioned earlier in the slides. And yeah, the bank, when you look into it, the bank process is really good. And you do get, when you actually look into it again, you get really good benefits with the bank compared to other apprenticeships. And it looks great on your CV. If you leave the apprenticeship and say you worked at the Bank of England for 4 years, people are really going to notice that, because it's such a prestigious place. And obviously I haven't been lucky enough yet to see the building, but I'm told it is very prestigious and very nice. But yeah, and you get to move around so many different roles. Obviously I can only really speak for the technology apprenticeship, but I'm sure within the other roles you can move around, and you can get so much different exposure at the bank, that it's really just one of the best places I could ever say is amazing for an apprenticeship.
Thank you. Number 3, how have you found your apprenticeship so far? That can be both kind of the work side and obviously the specific study side as well.
Yeah, sure. So obviously joining virtually, it's been very weird, sort of this year and last year. At the moment, obviously, it just is the way it is. But actually, it's been incredibly smooth. The whole application process that Amy was sort of going through earlier was really, really good, really enjoyable, and nothing really ever went wrong. And then the sort of induction process was really smooth. Everyone was so lovely and supportive. And that's actually something that I want to mention, is you do feel so supported at the bank, which sort of I didn't really expect, not for any particular reason, but when you join the bank, you obviously get assigned like a line manager, and everyone around you understands that you're new and you don't particularly know how things work. So everyone is really lovely, and everyone is there for you. For me personally, I love what I do at the moment. So as I mentioned earlier, I'm in testing. So I'm in test data particularly, and I sort of showed quite a lot of, I guess, confidence and drive at the beginning. So they put me on one of the biggest programs within the bank, which is really exciting. Quite stressful at times, but really amazing to be working towards something that is really real and such a massive thing, which does actually affect the UK economy. And that's also something I want to say, is that in the bank, you do get a lot of responsibility early on, and not particularly in a scary way, just that, they do really sort of trust you as a bank employee, which is really good. You'll get asked to maybe lead on some things, or, go talk to this person and give a presentation or show them how this works. And it really, for me, I don't ever actually feel like an apprentice. And I feel like that's an amazing feeling, because I just feel like a bank employee. But of course, I'm getting a degree on top of the work I'm doing. And then on the study side of it, it can be quite difficult sometimes to balance it. But the university, the bank, give you 1 day study day a week. So for me, it's on a Monday. And for that day, I have usually one lecture, so virtual lecture on a particular module. And then throughout the day, I have tasks to complete. So at the moment, I've got 2 assignments due in. But if there's no assignments, it's sort of just online work, so online videos, and sort of just tasks to complete. And yeah, it does work really well. And obviously, you can. The thing about the bank is it's really flexible, so you don't particularly have to just take that study day. If you can't sit down for 8 hours and do uni work, you can actually just split it out through the week, as long as you get it done by sort of the next Monday or the next time you have study. Then no one really minds. And the bank is really, really supportive about your sort of apprenticeship. They understand that you're not going to know everything, and they're really willing to help you out. And also they understand that it can be really hard to juggle uni work and proper work. So I've definitely had a few times where I've been quite stressed, and I've said to my manager, like, I just can't do this right now. I need to do this uni work, and they've been really, really supportive of it. So I would just say, don't be too afraid, because people know what you're going through, And yeah, it's been a great process so far.
Cool, thank you. So then just finally, what top tips would you give to anyone applying for an apprenticeship?
So some top tips I would probably say in terms of joining, definitely get yourself sort of on sort of social media stuff like LinkedIn is really, really good. That's definitely helped me a lot in building up my networking with people within the bank and outside the bank. So definitely have a look into that and get, making a profile, making it look sort of professional, adding your experience, all that sort of stuff. Then obviously your sort of CV, make sure that's looking good. And as Amy mentioned, obviously they don't really let you send in your CV, but if you've got a really good CV, you can basically use a lot of that information and put it into the application, so it's a bit less stressful. And then the final thing I'd say is probably, as I said a bit earlier, just don't be worried. People understand what you're going through. It's really nervous. I mean, I know when I joined, I was really, really nervous. And you don't know anyone, and especially virtually, it's a lot harder because you're not having that sort of interaction with people. But honestly, everyone I haven't met someone at the bank yet who isn't nice. They've all been really supportive, and you're not alone. Honestly, you're not alone. So they're the main things I would say, and just try and get yourself out there. Obviously, it can be scary trying to sort of network and talk to people. But if you just try and get yourself out there, show interest in certain things, and just reach out to people, then yeah, they all understand. And yeah, as I said, everyone's been so lovely. And yeah, I mean, I can't wait to go into the office and actually meet people like Amy and meet people I'm working with, really.
Thank you, Finn. Yeah, it is very bizarre to think that your whole experience has been virtual, but also a great way to demonstrate, I guess, to show that it works. But hopefully soon, when everyone can go back and see each other, you'll actually be able to see what the building's like. So thank you so much for that. That was really useful. I think if we jump onto the next slide, I think it's going to go back to Siano. Is that right?
Yeah, back to me. Thank you, Amy and Finn, and hopefully you've all really enjoyed hearing about the different pathways into the bank, hints and tips, which Amy very helpfully ran through, and also Finn's experience as well, which was definitely different given it's all being virtual. So hopefully you all now have a better idea of the different career opportunities. And finally, as Amy mentioned, it is important to research the bank ahead of applying. So we just wanted to let you all know the different ways you can learn more about the bank. You can see a few examples on this slide here. The first being Knowledge Bank. So this is a series of short articles with videos, one of which you saw at the start of this session, explaining some of the key concepts in a very concise and simple way. We also have many educational resources available for a wide range of ages, from aged 5 to post 16. So these free classroom materials can be used to help explain how the economy works and also what the Bank of England does. And of course, we also offer the opportunity to take part in our competitions for the chance to win prizes. So you can see there are a list of 3 competitions that we have running. And finally, if you would like to receive any updates on new Bank of England education initiatives, then please do sign up for our education newsletter, and also follow us and the Bank of England's museum, follow the Bank of England and the Bank of England's museum on the various social media pages. So that's all we really had for you all. We really hope you enjoyed this session. And now I guess I'll hand it back to hopefully answer your questions.
Thanks, guys. Great presentation. Hope everyone found that really useful. We have had quite a number of questions actually coming in while you've been presenting, guys. So I'll just run through these now, if that's okay. I'll start with Julia says, please, can you say what entry requirements are for the apprenticeships?
I can take this one. I've just been flicking through them myself, so I just thought I'd bring it up on the website next to me so that I can read through them. So for our level 4 apprenticeship, it's a minimum of 5 GCSEs at C and above, and then at least 72 UCAS points from up to 3 A levels, or whatever the equivalent would be, dependent on what you're studying and where. And then for our degree apprenticeships, this is where it gets a lot more specific to the particular degree, because like I say, these are set by the university as opposed to us. So for the data science degree apprenticeship, again, it's 5 GCSEs at grade C or above, but then 3 A-levels at CCC or above, including maths or whatever the equivalent would be. For the digital and tech solutions degree apprenticeship, 5 GCSEs at grade C or above, and then AAB at A-level, and then there's the equivalent also on the website for IB and BTEC. So the digital and tech one is our highest entry requirements. Like I say, we work with Exeter on that. So they are the requirements that's set by Exeter. And then we have our professional economist degree apprenticeship as well. So again, 5 GCSEs at grade C or above, and then 3 A-levels at ABB or 120 UCAS points, whatever that equates to, depending on what you're studying. So hopefully that's helpful. But like I say, they are all listed on the Bank of England Early Careers page as well, so that you can see them in full detail.
Brilliant. Thanks for that. Ellis says, do you help if I need to relocate?
I'm not sure if Sienna knows any more on this. My understanding is we don't offer any kind of relocation service or funding. What we do with our future talent programs is we always make sure that the cohorts are in touch with each other, because what we do find is mainly more with our graduate or intern cohorts is a lot of them do need to relocate, obviously if they were living at uni for the period of time where they were studying, and it means that they can then get in touch, because some of them tend to flat share, so it's a way of getting them in touch with each other so that they can support each other on that. But aside from that, I'm not aware of any other relocation support that we provide.
I mean, with what's happened with COVID and working from home and stuff like that, has the bank got any plans for, letting people sort of do these things working from home in the future? Do you know what I mean? Or will they all still just be based in London?
I think that's the thing. I think it's still so unsure at the moment, but given we have been working from home now for nearly a year, a lot of teams have had to adopt it and adapt their approach to make it work. So as far as I'm aware, we haven't been told of any plans to get us back in the office. Obviously, we're not going to be doing anything until it would be deemed safe to. But I think it's very likely, not just with us, but across other industries as well, that this is going to have changed the way people think that we need to work. And I'd imagine working from home will be a lot more of an option, especially for those that aren't easily accessible to London. It might be a more permanent option, but I wouldn't be able to say for certain, because I guess it's definitely not up to me. It's just whatever we get told.
Sure. Okay, brilliant. Thank you. Ellie says, are there still any apprenticeships open for September 2021?
Unfortunately, no. Our application process closed at the start of January, as we're about to go into our assessment centres for these next week. We've had it earlier this year than normally, so we opened it in line with the UCAS applications last year, whereas usually we didn't open until January time, but we actually ended up closing in January so that we could get everything started earlier and offers out earlier. So our process has come forward a bit, so it does mean unfortunately there's nothing else for this year, but of course we'll be reaching out again next year for a 2022 intake.
And when do you start sort of advertising the roles for next year?
So we usually know what we have on offer by around September, October time. That's usually when we know what opportunities we're going to have, what hiring areas are involved, and then applications open will shortly follow from that.
Is there somewhere the guys can register their interest for next year's schemes?
Yeah, absolutely. So our main Bank of England /early careers page is what we use to advertise everything. It's got all of the links to our programs, and there is a register your interest section now that applications are closed. So
brilliant. Thank you. Aidan says, can you apply for a level 4 and level 6 at the same time?
There's nothing stopping you in the system, but there does get to a point in the application process where we have to ask you to choose. So if it's a case that you want to just give yourself a bit more time to understand which one you want to go for, I'm pretty sure it's when it gets to the online test stage where it starts getting assessed, and we have to ask you to pick one. Otherwise, we'd have you in multiple different pools. So there's nothing stopping you initially, but we will ask you to choose eventually.
Okay, brilliant. Randy says about applying for the graduate development program. Is a 2-1 a requirement to get onto it?
Yes, for the graduate programme, the entry requirement is a 2-1 in any degree.
Okay, I think it means, do you need it before you apply?
Oh, sorry, I'm just catching up on that one.
Or can you apply sort of before you've received the grade? I think that's what he means.
So it's when you apply, you can apply in your last year of university, so it would be predicted, and then we get in touch with you once you've graduated to double check. So it would mean that if you were offered, your offer would be conditional on achieving the 2-1 that you were predicted. Exactly the same as how it works with our apprenticeships as well. Your grades would obviously be predicted, and then we would get in touch with you on results day to double check that you have met the criteria. So all of our offers are always conditional on that.
Okay, excellent. John says, which is the most popular pathway and why?
So for the level 4 apprenticeship, they're very even across the options. It's the degree apprenticeship where we see the biggest difference, and I don't think it's a surprise. It's the economist degree apprenticeship, which is always the most popular, purely because of the stigma around the bank that we are just economics and finance, which obviously is far from the truth, as you've heard from Finn. He's our tech apprentice, and it's actually our digital and tech apprentice that we recruit the most people onto at the moment. But in terms of interest wise, the economics degree apprenticeship is very competitive, because I think it's what people think that's what the bank do as a whole. So
absolutely. One of the questions we've been asked a lot this week is about progression after the apprenticeships sort of finish. I think there's a bit of confusion. Like, people are always asking, do you get a job at the end of it? Could you just answer that for us?
Yeah, of course. So both of our apprenticeships are full-time roles. So you do join the bank as a full member of staff. It's just that you're classed as being on a programme for the duration of that. And it's just providing good performance. You have to complete an off-programme assessment in order to come off programme successfully. But providing you've got good performance, you're performing well against your apprenticeship, and you're due to finish your apprenticeship study soon, you then roll off programme and you continue in the same role that you were doing. You're just essentially a free member of staff. You're not attached to a programme. So then after a certain period, you can then apply for more internal roles. There's a certain point afterwards where you can then apply for roles at a higher level. So all of our opportunities are permanent, aside from the sort of internship and industrial placement ones, obviously.
Thank you. Tom says, do you offer work experience before applying for the apprenticeship?
We don't really have a work experience programme, no, not that we own centrally for Future Talent. We do have a communities team that deal with with a selection of schools and colleges that they do community work experience with, but it's something that sits aside from what we do. It's not really a central programme.
Okay. Ryan says, talking about your application process, why do you choose this process instead of a traditional one? And what tips do you have for a video interview?
So hopefully the video interview tips, I remember seeing this question coming through as I was going through the hints and tips. So hopefully what I've already been through has been helpful on that side of things. In terms of the application process, it's a process that we've had in place for quite a few years, as long as I've been on the team as well. And I think the reason we have this in place and we use it across all of our programs is because they are extremely competitive. It's a way of us being able to essentially sift through the candidates. It sounds a bit harsh when you say it like that, but there has to be a way for us to be able to group the candidates and progress some, and then unfortunately not progress some. So we have to have quite a few stages in place to allow this to happen. And it's just a process that we've seen works. It's quite consistent, and it's open to everyone. So that's why we have it in place at the moment.
Okay, thank you. And Tara says, what do you think is a successful person?
The big question I think everyone would like to know. I think the big thing about the bank is we're not just looking for one particular type of person, and the biggest thing to us is our culture. So the values that we have here at the bank are really important, and they are a real sort of basis of what our assessment centre consists of. So for us, it's about, are you collaborative? So that's one of our values. Are you inclusive? they're two really big qualities to us. You know, it's quite easy, I think, to look at us as an institution and think that it would be very formal and very serious and you wouldn't have much fun. But actually, we're really nice people. And I think everyone can vouch for that works there. Like Finn said, he's not yet come across someone that hasn't been willing to help. So that we then look for those sort of qualities in our candidates as well. So I think it's a fair split between a good motivation and understanding of what we do and why you actually want to work for us, as opposed to just get a job anywhere. But then also being able to reflect those values that we have that are kind of embed our culture into the organisation.
Brilliant. Hope that helps, Tara. Kenny says, is the training side of the apprenticeship an exam or coursework?
I don't mind taking this one.
Yeah, go for it.
So for the degree apprenticeship, you have there's about an assignment for every module. So I think there's about 4 modules a year. So you have one assignment, which I guess is coursework, and then in sort of April, May time, you tend to have one exam for each module, depending on the module. Some don't do the exams, and I think most of them do. So yeah, that's the layout. But the assignments you get a reasonable amount of time to do them. And usually you would be doing them on your study day. You sort of overlap them, depending on how big the assignment is. Some of them are, for instance, coding ones, just depending on the modules. The apprenticeship I'm on does go through a lot of modules because it's sort of an overview of an IT apprentice. So it goes through like data analysis, the coding side of it, project management. So you really do get a whole range of things. But yeah, you have coursework for each module, and then you have usually 3 to 4 exams in May.
And I just wanted to come in there, sorry. Obviously, Finn has said his experience coming from a digital tech degree perspective, but each of our apprenticeships kind of do differ, especially between a level 4 and a level 6. So with a level 4 apprenticeship, typically they're more coursework based as opposed to exam. But, for example, with our data analyst, there are 2 exams. So it does depend on which apprenticeship you're doing and the level as well.
Okay, thanks, guys. Jason says, how many apprentices do you take on each year, and how competitive is the application process?
I don't mind taking this one. So again, the number of apprentices we take on each year does just vary, like I said, dependent on the interest from the business areas. Just to go off this year, we're looking at recruiting around 20 apprentices across both the level 4 and degree apprenticeship as a whole. And I guess not to scare anyone, but just looking at the application numbers, I think across both the degree apprenticeship and the level 4 programme, we had just under 2,000 applications for 20 roles. So I would say it's very competitive, still picking up the interest compared to our grad programmes, because our grad programmes have just been around for years, and we're still kind of building the awareness of our apprenticeship programmes, but they are still extremely competitive.
Brilliant. Have you seen an increase this year because of COVID? What's happened, across the job market, or has it been, similar to previous?
Yeah, I think in the apprenticeship space, especially for the degree apprenticeships, because like I did mention, they are quite new to us. And in our first couple of years, it was quite hard to get that awareness out there and to show people that we do have those on offer. So I think we have seen a big jump. Obviously, a lot will be due to the current situation and the uncertainty that people are facing, which might make people think more about other opportunities as opposed to just university. But also, I like to think that it's just because we've made ourselves a little bit more aware in the degree apprenticeship space that they've probably built. So I think it's probably a cross between the two.
Okay, thank you. Aidan says, can you please remind me which programme the economics role was in? Was it level 4 or 6?
It was the level 6 degree apprenticeship because it's professional economist with Kent.
Okay, cool. Jack says, I think this one's for you, Finn. What type of projects do you get to work on as an IT apprentice?
So that really just depends. So as I mentioned, I'm on one of the biggest projects in the bank, sort of because I expressed that I'm really driven and really wanted to work on something big. And And there are so many different projects and programs going on within the bank, not just within technology, just throughout the bank in general. And some are big. So the one I'm on is spans for about 4 years. So it's a very long program, but there are sort of smaller ones within technology, within markets and banking. And it's really up to you. So usually you will work with your line manager to sort of talk about what sort of things you're interested in. And I mean, there's so many different opportunities at the bank. They might say to you, oh, do you want to, help out on this program and give it a try and stuff? And then you can either decide whether, you like that sort of thing, or you want to be on a smaller program or a bigger program. So it's really entirely up to you. As I said before, the best thing about the bank is that it's so, you do get a lot of responsibility and you don't even feel like an apprentice. I just feel like a bank employee. So yeah, but there are just so many different projects around the bank, especially at the moment. There's a lot going on.
So you get quite a lot of responsibility from day one, like it sounds like.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, like I said earlier, there's nothing to be scared of. But obviously people want to sort of know, I guess, where your limit are, and some people like, depending on their work sort of ethic, some people like to work, their 9 to 5 and then do other things, and some people like to really drive, push themselves and drive themselves. So you just have to, just be honest with people, and work with the people around you for them to find you the best opportunities, and then in the end you can start looking for opportunities for yourself when you feel confident enough. But yeah, you do get really good responsibility, and it's amazing experience. I'd definitely say that the bank is the only place really that would do that. Because for me, when I was looking for apprenticeships, the other apprenticeships I was looking into, I could just get the sense that you would not be sort of getting as much responsibility or exposure to things as you would be at the bank.
Okay, thanks, Finn. I've got another question for you, actually, Finn. Jason says, do you do anything with AI on the degree? We've had a lot of questions this week about AI. Obviously, it's going to be a big technology moving forward over the next sort of 5 to 10 years. Anything that you're working on at the moment, Finn, or anything sort of planned in the course there?
Nothing for me particularly that I know of. But as I mentioned, the bank as an organization isn't really that big in the grand scheme of things, but it does feel massive. There's so many different areas of it. And I'm not aware of any projects on AI, but there probably are. The bank with technology is sort of building up technology, sort of because of the nature of the bank. Their technology isn't quite up to sort of, the modernness, I suppose, of like somewhere like Google or something. But yeah, so technology is really building. I think there's about 600 permanent employees at the bank, and then some consultants. But yeah, not of anything I'm aware of. But as I sort of said earlier, if the opportunity is there, then yeah, you will be able to sort of ask to be part of it. And yeah, so I'm not aware of anything. But if there is, you would still be able to grab that opportunity or talk to people about it.
Thanks, Finn. Eleanor says, if I wanted to take a gap year, would I apply in year 13 or would I apply during my gap year?
You'd apply during your gap year. We see that quite a lot. People like to take a year out to just work out what they want to do. In a more normal world, I guess, go traveling or something like that. But yeah, that's absolutely fine. You just make sure that you apply for being able to join the following September. One of the questions in the application form is, can you confirm that you are available to start full-time work from September of the following year? So that would kind of make you realise whether you would be or not. So if you're taking a gap year, then you wouldn't apply until you're in your gap year.
Okay, thank you. Kelly says, were you guys all interested in finance before joining the bank?
I can start this off. So I joined the bank on the school leaver program myself in 2016, and I was actually initially interested in finance. In fact, my knowledge of finance was very limited, and I kind of wanted to go in the accountancy route. But after having joined the bank, I kind of realized how big the world of finance was and the number of roles and departments and divisions in the bank that you could potentially go into. So I worked in data for 2 years, but I soon realized that it just wasn't for me. And obviously now I work in HR, but I do want to flag that you don't necessarily have to be interested in finance to join the bank, because as Finn is a very prime example, there is many more roles and opportunities in the bank outside of the finance/banking route. So, if you're not a maths person, or if you're not interested in economics, definitely do the research and know about the bank and the role of it, but it's not limited to only those roles.
Okay, guys, any other responses there? Or?
So for me, when I came, as I sort of mentioned, I came out of college. I mean, no, I have no sort of previous experience with finance or particular interest. I mean, I'm quite when I first was looking for apprenticeships, I was quite a technical person, like into coding, and I really enjoyed coding. And then after I joined the bank, I actually realized that I do like coding, but that's not actually the route I want to go down. I definitely want to have more of a leadership role, managerial role in the future. So yeah, to answer the question, no, I'm not really that interested in finance. And obviously, as said previously, it's important that you do the research about knowing what the bank does, but it's not in any way needed for you to know finance at all. I mean, especially in technology, some projects and programs are based around the financial system and how it works, but most of the roles within technology won't have to know like a lot of details about it. It's more about how it all works and the technical aspect of it. Yeah.
Brilliant. Thanks, guys. Just one last question from Matilda, just to clarify something for her. She's just saying, are lectures usually in person at the University of Exeter?
So no, because that would be quite crazy to have to go down to Exeter once a week. So the way it usually works is the lectures are all this is for Exeter only. I'm not sure about the other unis, but for Exeter, it's online lectures every Monday, and that would be in normal times. That's not just because of COVID. So it would be virtual sort of lessons, and then you do, as I said, sort of the learning and the tasks. And then you have what's called residentials, I think twice or 3 times a year, which is basically where you would then normally go down to the university for a week and stay down there and spend time with your peers and learn about the new modules you're going to learn about. Obviously, due to the situation we're in, I've had 2 of them and they've both been virtual. But normally, yeah, you would be going down to the university, I think, twice or 3 times a year. I can't quite remember, for about a week, and you would stay down there. But yeah, no, the lectures are all online anyway.
Thanks, Finn. Well, that brings us to the end nicely of the questions and to the end of the session. Have you got any sort of last words you'd like to leave with the guys today?
I guess just a thank you to everyone. who appreciate a Friday afternoon is not the best time, but we really hope you found this session useful. Obviously, the applications for 2021 has closed now, but please do check out our website for all the programs that we offer, as it may differ next year for the offering, and please do apply if you're interested.
Thanks, guys. Well, yeah, that's, like I said, it brings us nicely to the end of the session. And just to say, the session's been fully recorded and will be on the careermap.co.uk website next week, probably under the Career Map Live section, so you can come back and refer to the presentation anytime you want. And just to say, big thank you to the guys at Bank of England coming today, and hopefully we'll do a load more webinar series for next National Apprenticeship Week next year. And just say, yeah, stay safe, everybody, and have a lovely weekend.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone. Cheers.
Thank you.